Hello everyone, this is yet another episode of Career Talks by Welcome Solutions. In these meetings we talk with interesting professionals who have fascinating career stories behind and who are willing to share with us. And today I have great pleasure to introduce Dr. Olga Ukolova. Dr. Olga Ukolova holds the title of Doctor of Medicine obtained from the National Medical University O.O. Bogomolec in Kyiv. While obtaining the title, she worked as a research scientist at the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. Her research considers autophagy in Alzheimer's disease and autophagy perspective of heart attacks and strokes. After that, she worked as a project manager and senior analyst in software development, banking, and AI development fields. With time, she and a group of enthusiasts and professionals in various fields started working on the idea of creating a decentralized, private, and censorship-resistant computer ecosystem, which would eventually lead to fulfilling the ultimate goal, reaching immortality. She co-authored the FreeAI manifesto, where the group established their core principles. On the same note, she also founded a Swiss company, Pandora Core AG, which is currently focusing on building technological layers and products that would become building blocks of the future evolution of Bitcoin ecosystem, thus also bringing the initial idea of immortality closer to reality. One of the most known technologies where Pandora Core is the main driver is RGB, a privacy-first smart contracting and bearer rights system, which enables many real-world cases to be done in a proper way, with individualism and sovereignty at heart. Though Olga's interests are not lying solely on protocol-level activities, recently her company released Bitcoin Pro and MyCitadel products, which will bring more power to the individuals and help them operate in the digital world with confidence and professionalism. Thank you so much, Olga, for joining us today, for accepting our invitation. Great to have you, and I'm very curious to hear this long and fascinating story told from your own perspective.
Hi, and I have a very small disclaimer to make before we start. I'm the master of unpopular opinions, and I usually stand for things being true, even if they're not polite. So bear with me and keep that in mind. Well, first and foremost, I've never probably had the idea of me getting a career. So probably what everything started with was at the start, like I think it was third year of my studying at the university, at the medical one. For some reason, I understood that I needed to do something in order to become more independent from my parents, to, I don't know, do what I need to do without reflecting on someone else, without being dependent on anyone else. So I started to looking for a job because I understood that probably I need to start with getting money because I had some ideas in my mind and I understood that I needed first money for that. So like the most common job that any medical student can find is ambulance, especially in Ukraine where I was finishing the university. But for some reason, although I didn't want at that point to be a medical doctor, like a practicing medical doctor, I understood that the whole romance of being in medical field is like, it started fading away a bit for me. Because when I saw my fellow students work after some shifts on the ambulances, which were working there, and when I understood that they basically spent their probably most productive time in their life on actually rescuing people who had drug overdose, suicidal guys who actually had like psychosis and stuff, and they honestly did not want to live. And they basically spent their life on helping people who were probably not, they were not even willing to live anymore. And to me, that job and spending my time on that was too much, especially at that point. This is why I started to looking in some other directions, like working in restaurants and everything like that. But for some reason, at that point, there were not that many restaurants and the restaurants that I did apply for, they did answer me, but in like after 3 months of my appliance. So that was not relevant at that point anymore. So I was looking, I was just in a process of searching for something. I understood that there was an open spot in one of the departments, in the Department of Pathophysiology in the university where I was studying. I started hanging out there. We also had like physiology and pathophysiology as classes. So I was thinking that probably like working on the department as like regular assistant, doing some paperwork probably would be more, would be better, would leave me more time to educate myself and to work, to meet other people and everything. Also at that point, at the same point in time, I got very fascinated by how human body works from the perspective of sequences, I can say, which is basically physiology is about. So you have some cause, and then one impulse, one cause can just stimulate whole bunch of different effects from with your body, with your brain, with organs, with hormones and everything. So I got interested in that, and especially in breaking that. This is why I always loved pathophysiology, probably even more than physiology, because in teeny tiny molecule, in tiny error that can appear, the whole body can be shut down. And this was very, very intriguing for me. And it was cool, especially, and as a medical doctor, to find these spots and to cure them in order to cure everything else that the human has was probably the essence of treatment for me. So I started working simply on studying these topics and coming more and more to the corresponding departments. They also had a scientific organization on those departments, so I got into a couple of talks that were given there. And at some point, there appeared one of the teachers from the department. And after one of the talks, there was like this it's not after party, but just like 10 minutes of networking stuff. And we got into talking, and he liked my ideas of finding like one tiny spot in the whole organism and then playing around with that in order to see what can be, how this play can affect the whole body. And he told me that that process actually reminded him of QA engineering, of finding bugs in software. And my first reaction was, what is software? Like, well, you know, the stuff that we do in IT. I'm like, what is IT? So he showed me a couple of, and it turned out that he partially was a teacher at the department, and partially he had his own business of IT software development. And he showed me a couple of mobile apps that they were developing at the point, and I crushed basically all of them. He was so amused by that at some point he started, we got into talking, he started giving me some new releases. When they got releases of applications, he started just giving me them in order to tap the buttons and to then reproduce bugs or find bugs. I did that, and I did it apparently so well that he offered me a part-time job. And I told him that I was looking for a job at that point, so he understood that probably there was some cooperation point at that moment in time. So this is how I got into IT field. And so basically, I think at that point in time, on my third and fourth years of studies, I had like 3 or 4 jobs part-time. I was making, so this like QA engineering part, I was like part-time gag. Then a couple of, I was teaching English to a couple of kids and students. I was helping to translate a book. I was working at the pathophysiology department at my medical university. And the best part, I was helping people who had the distance type of education on the same department to pass the exams. And basically, I wrote the tests for them. That was the best part. I mean, I understood how teachers work. I understood what the students needed. So I just was the mediator between these 2 types of guys in the department. I'm really hoping that the guys from the department will not see this video in any way. So I got into IT, and I got into IT through testing, and I got to know a very different mindset of people, because people in IT field, they think in very different manner than doctors do, even medical students. And I met a lot of new people, a lot of new types of mindsets. And I was probably, it would be good to say that I was in the middle of a lot of projects, and I was talking at my job. I was always talking both with the developers, with marketing people, with like C-level guys, with clients themselves. And then at some point, apparently I understood that 4 jobs at one point was not enough. And I asked, at this place of work, I asked my boss to give me some project to manage. And my motivation was, so I got a little bit bored. I do the testing stuff pretty efficiently and fast. I constantly talk to other people. Can we like make it official? Can I actually try? Just give me some small project, maybe internal one, but I want to try myself in doing that. So this was my first step. They gave me the internal project. It was just a simple website, and I managed the development and release of that. And after that, I didn't have much experience at that point, as you can understand, but for some reason at that point, the company gained the first client, English-speaking client from Britain, and they assigned me as a manager for that, which was huge responsibility for me, because I was like 19 or something, but I was the guy who knew English at that point, probably better than anyone else in the whole company, and I had good skills of communication with clients and with the team, so I was like this translator from the business language to technical one. So they threw that project on me, and that project is actually a very good success right now. And it was also related to medical field. It was about working with in Britain, in London actually, with NHS system. So it was easier for me to manage this project than to probably any other project manager. So then the company developed the banking field, also like the banking wing of its activities. And at some point I got into a couple of projects there also. So basically I stuck my nose probably in every single project that I could reach, because it was never enough for me. And I always wanted to expand myself, expand my skills, and understand where is the limit of me. And then I was graduating in 2014, which was the year where I had a couple of turbulences in my life. First, in Ukraine as a country, there was a war. The war started. I got actually selected by the government to go to the war field, which I kindly declined because I understood that I would not be able to help anyone. I had my family, I had my friends, I had friends on the battlefield, and I understood that if I go there also, I would not be able to help them anyhow. And also at that point, I had my PhD preparations for Alzheimer's disease topic, and I met George Brzezicki. He invited me into his lab, and everything was going well. This is why going to the war zone was not really an option for me. And I also had a job in the capital, so I could not leave that also. So there, probably regarding academia path, at that moment was crucial because I understood that I had I cannot say naive, but romanticized to some extent the way of thinking about science. And science turned out to be not the thing that I was imagining. Even when I was preparing for my PhD, I did a lot of work, a lot of literature prepared and everything was prepared for me to have my PhD during the last year of studying in the medical university, which is usually not the case. But at some point I understood that science was already not about discoveries, was even not about treating something, was more about bureaucracy, system, writing articles, getting peer reviews numbers, not actual peer reviews, but peer review numbers or peer review authors' surnames. So it was basically the same bureaucratic system as we can see everywhere. And of course, when I started asking questions, like, why cannot I have the PhD at that lab in San Francisco? And I got very unreasonable answers to that from my supervisors. I understood that it's just a no-go for me. And I was not willing to spend that much effort on fighting with windmills and receiving nothing in return. So I started focusing more. I still did not leave the neuroscience per se, but I shifted the topic a bit because also I was talking at the IT company, I was talking about this neural network machine learning systems because a lot of them they claimed that they were biologically inspired. They had biologically inspired architectures. They were just using the brain architecture and trying to transform it into hardware carriers and everything like that. So I'm a bit shifted the perspective of the topic from the academia one to more IT related. We had, at that point, a project with autonomous drones, which actually had neural networks, and I was a project lead and a project manager of that. So it sort of went still in a good way. Yes, and working more and more with, and of course, probably at some point, three things collided. First, my thirst for expanding myself, learning new skills, acquiring knowledge. Second is the war in the country where I lived at that point, because the war was for independency of people, for their sovereignty, their personal one, and the neural network part, the IT part, the software development, hardware development. So probably these three things collided into me becoming one of the founders of, me finding enthusiasts, other enthusiasts, and us finding and writing the FreeAI manifesto, and started thinking about how, like, what the world and software and hardware is actually lacking in order to, for us as people, as beings, to be transferred and somewhere and thus living forever. Because a lot of, like, we understood, especially we had a bunch of other medical doctors in the team, we understood that humans are accidentally, they can die very accidentally. You can out of cancer that was not treated, regardless the age, out of car accidents or whatever. So death was something that was driving me to actually do stuff in my life. And I understood that probably science and medicine and neural network development and a lot of this stuff, they should be focused on overcoming the limit of human death, and thus leading us to becoming forever immortal. It sounded crazy at that point, and it actually sounds crazy to many, many people even right now. But still, I mean, I had a bunch of friends and are there other guys that were interested in this, so I had support in my illusions or delusions. So we established the FreeAI manifesto, and we started the project of actually building the censorship-resistant AI, which would then be able to just take us and transfer it into some other carrier, thus making us immortal. And with that idea, I remember we started with that, and we started in the year where probably you remember when the blockchain boom started, because Bitcoin appeared in 2008, but no one was like cared about it.
Right.
Everyone started looking into crypto, whatever that means. I think it was like in 2015 or somewhere. So at that point, we thought that, so human brain is a huge computation machine. So we need what? We need a supercomputer, right? And it should be decentralized probably, because if you have single point of failure, then it's easy to eliminate you, which would be equal to you dying. Like you raise the database and that's it, you're gone. So we tried to build, and the promise of delivering the supercomputer was made by Ethereum project at that point. We fell for that. We actually thought that Bitcoin was like about money and nothing more. And Ethereum was actually more related to what we were doing. We started working with Ethereum as a technological layer, as a consensus layer, as the blockchain layer. And then we understood that the more effort we put into it, the less result we get. Because the software was not robust. The languages that we're using, that were used for writing the software were very buggy. And the language, the programming language, Solidity, it does not, it was not made for writing something as solid as probably like supercomputer thing, because like Solidity is, probably I can compare it to have a Solidity as a small stick on which and with which you actually need to build a house. You cannot build a house with a stick. You cannot use a very unfitting programming language to build something huge. It just doesn't work that way. So we spent some time on still trying to build a platform, to build our project on top of Ethereum. We understood that it had too many problems, and we were basically spending time not on building the project, but on mitigating the dependencies, mitigating forks, problems like bugs, which we did not even introduce, which was a bit harder. That at some point we switched to another technological layer as the base one. It's called RSK. I think it's currently pretty much alive, but it did not have any promises of delivering supercomputer, but they were basically they were using Bitcoin as a protocol layer as a base, which was a new paradigm. But they tried as Ethereum to take Ethereum smart contracts and to put it on Bitcoin. That's like combining two worlds. The idea of that was very good. The implementation sucks and sucked. So we started doing that, and probably, unfortunately, one of the hugest problems that we faced was that there were not that many people supporting RSK, supporting by contributing to the ecosystem. This is why it was hard to understand that we have like a lot of legacy from our Ethereum attempts. We have a lot of ideas how to properly implement what we need to implement. But here again, we face the problem of contributing and writing RSK more than writing our own product. So that was a bit tough for us. And eventually, at that point, at some point, we met Giacomo Zucco. He's a very famous guy in Bitcoin community. Probably he's one of those people who has a superpower to translate very complex and very complicated ideas into very simple words and very simple definitions. And he introduced the concept that he, Peter Todd, and other guys were thinking about, which was called RGB. And at that point, it was basically the concept of, can we issue tokens on Bitcoin and on Lightning? That was basically it. We were not interested in making money, in creating new type of money. This is why the concept of tokens was not that fascinating for us. But we got into talking with Giacomo, and we understood that the potential of RGB was huge, and potentially RGB would become our base point for the protocol, for the project that we have been doing for this decentralized and censorship-resistant AI. So at some point we agreed that we could become the technical drivers of the whole effort. And month after month, at some of our work, of our contributions, the tokens, the idea of tokens on Lightning became the idea of a huge privacy preserving and like sovereign, self-sovereign bearer rights system, which can be used for so many use cases that probably even us, like ourselves, our team, it's sometimes hard to understand that we actually did this. So we expanded the idea, we implemented the idea, and currently we have either like on different level of implementation. Something is on specification level, something is already written in code, something is just developed as a prototype, but we have already systems for assets, issuing assets, managing assets, like bearer rights systems, company shares. We have tools for management of finances and management, everything, which is everything with this. One of the probably most hyped topics right now is NFTs, and we do have a solution for that already. We do have already a couple of products that would actually help you manage all of that. We have the solution for digital identities, with the totally different paradigm that Microsoft is building, for example. We even at some point started redoing the internet as itself, not the web part of it, which you usually see on the websites, but like the internet as a whole, without the hardware. Yeah, this is how I actually got. This was my path from thinking about becoming a medical doctor to where I am now. But on top of that, apparently it's not still enough, neither for me nor for my colleagues, because currently I have a lot of calls with guys that are working with longevity topics and transhumanism topics. Well, mostly longevity. There are guys from very different universities. Some of them are from Oxford, some of them are from Cambridge, some of them are from Basel here in Switzerland. So also, regardless everything else, we also are working still towards the ultimate goal of ours, to actually reach immortality, both from biological perspective. This is why I'm in this longevity topics, and from technological perspective, just having various different building blocks for reaching the goal. Yeah.
Wow, this is an amazing story. I don't know where to start because I already have so many questions for you. I have to say that when you said immortality, it felt a bit like a threat to me. I thought, I always thought that at least one thing I can be sure of in life, which is that one day I can peacefully die, but maybe not. So I was like, whoops, maybe not anymore.
Well, we do not want, we were thinking about this, and this is why a lot of transhumanists and a lot of guys from academia and a lot of people who work in longevity, they also they have this tendency to, if they think that something is valuable, they need to push it to everyone. Like, if they understand that they want to live forever, this is why everyone must share this will. We are not. This is why they have all these lines, like humanity needs to do this, humanity needs to expand there, humanity needs to become immortal, humanity needs to become more than humans, thus transhumanism, blah, blah, blah. This is not the approach that we take. Our approach is very selfish. Like, if you want to do something, you do it. If not, no one will ever force you. That's it. So if you want to die peacefully, please do that. If you do want to live forever, you should have means to do that also. Because actually the topic of, I understand that it's a bit off topic, but I remember when we had a lesson, actually it was a test on psychiatry when I was studying in the university, and one of the questions to me was, what was my opinion on euthanasia? And the question was like, what is my opinion? And I told the woman who was getting held in the test, that I was actually for it. Because for me, having an option to die the way you want to die is also a part of being free. I want to be free to choose how I want to die, if I want to die, when I want to do it, if I want to do it. So I explained my approach. I actually provided all arguments I had at that point. But I think I didn't pass the exam because of that answer, because the teacher was a very religious one. And apparently being religious was overpowered being a medical doctor at that point. This is why she started saying that it was not my decision to make as a doctor. It was not even a person's decision to make, because the God gave you the life and only he could take it away. And that was shocking for me to hear, because it means that doctors should be like, feudals, like people who have slaves and they tell you what to do, what not to do. That was not the medical doctor that I would want to be. And probably that was one of the small teeny tiny points when I understood that probably being free, even in a question, and especially in questions of life or death, is something that every person should have to make decision on his own.
Right. Yeah, that's it's a discussion for the whole different conversation, I think. But I get it. Whew, that's a good news. Death is voluntary. Great. All right. So one thing I have to say is that it's great to hear your approach, because I feel that among the people I've met in blockchains, I of course met lots of great people there. But I really like your approach, because I feel that building the ecosystem and working in the Bitcoin community to actually build a new infrastructure for you, it's just a means to reach some other goal and not a goal in itself. So as you mentioned, you're not money driven, and that's really good to have. And maybe for the viewers who don't know that much about blockchains, maybe we could also explain a little bit more about how this Bitcoin ecosystem looks like, because it's a bit like an onion, or maybe not an onion. Onions are passé. It's more like a human cortex. Like lots of neuroscientists watches this channel. So let's say human cortex, it has layers. So could you tell us a little bit more about that? So how does this ecosystem looks and how it works? And what are these different bits of the architecture, and what are the different functionalities that you have on these different layers?
Well, probably first and foremost, I need to emphasize that Bitcoin and blockchain are different things. And the real value is not in blockchain itself, as the whole Ethereum community wants, it has been pushing. The real value is in Bitcoin itself, not in blockchain. So the inventors of Bitcoin took blockchain as a technology, not because it was actually perfect one for some goals, but it was the best one at that time for some goals. So, and there is huge difference between these two approaches. Probably I can be a bit brief here. One of the main values of Bitcoin is that it's right now it's the only base layer protocol that can be censorship resistant. And for us, for example, being censorship resistant is one of the core values, because regardless what you build, if it can be seized from you, if it can be erased without your knowing or without you agreeing to it, doesn't make sense whether it was there in the first place or not. If you cannot protect what you're building, if you cannot protect yourself, if your data, your values that you create and everything do not actually belong to you, you can as well say that it never even happened, or it never happened to you. This is why when a lot of projects say that they are decentralized, that they are private or scalable or whatever, or fast, and I do not hear the censorship resistance quality, I always become very, very skeptical of the project. Simply because I understand, throughout years of attempts and tryings, I understood, and a lot of other people that I have been working with, we understood that that is one of the core values, because without being resistant to censorship, there is no freedom and there is no sovereignty. And that's the building block. And also a lot of Bitcoin, of course, is also an economic incentives and consensus layer, which means that actually I was never into economics before coming into Bitcoin sphere. But if you think about it, and there are a lot of things in economics that I despise very much, because they speak about theoretical possibilities, and I understand that everything is possible in theory, but a lot of fields of economy never gets into facts and never gets into real practice. This is what frustrates me very often, especially while talking with economists. But still, Bitcoin as an economic system does two things. First, it's perfect as a game theory model, because you have zero trust between the parties. You don't trust the other person that you are interacting with, but you understand that you will not stab the other person in the back, and he or she will not do the same thing. Thus, you reach the so-called Nash equilibrium, because if you do that, you both will lose more. And if you cooperate, you actually will gain more. And this is just brilliant from game theory perspective. That's one thing. And on the other hand, Bitcoin is a very, very good money, type of money, from simple theoretical again and practical and historical point of view. Because I will not get into the details of what is money, because that's going to take us another 2 hours probably. But still, economical incentives, like financial economical incentives, are very important for humans, even as social beings, because like to be probably very straight, the behavior of apes, the behavior of humans change if they see, in case of apes, bananas in front of them, in case of people, money in front of them. And depending on whether banana is good or bad, whether the money actually have value behind it or not, the behavior changes. The human and the ape, they can or cannot be willing to cooperate. They can or cannot be willing to trade the asset that they received today in order to, or consume it today if it's a banana, or to store it somewhere, knowing that tomorrow there will be another banana, another money or something. So actually a lot of economical theories can be broken, and this is heads up for all medical doctors and behavioral, especially biologists. Behavioral biology smashes a lot of economical theories, because economists, like economics base assumption is that humans think rationally, and human is a rational social being, which is never the case for any doctor. And I mean, I remember I was laughing at this definition in the first place, so like some time ago. So Bitcoin serves as money and as an agreement protocol between simply communicating with other people and exchanging something, information, value, money, messages, whatever. And Bitcoin can also be thought as a protocol, not just as communication protocol, but as a technological layer, very robust one, on which you can build other technologies without being afraid that the whole stack would fall apart because the base layer is buggy. So for me, Bitcoin is a lot more than just money. Bitcoin is not about crypto, is not about money, is not about blockchain for me. It's about having a very complex stuff that enables many things to be done in a proper way finally, using technology, of course. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I can discuss the topic in various details, but taking into account that we have doctors watching this, probably this can be enough for now.
Right. I would like to keep a little bit neutral here, because I know that the blockchain community is quite divided in terms of what is the optimal protocol, and I know that there are different schools. So I like to just note this, because I know that there is the team Bitcoin, there is team Ethereum, there is team Cardano, there are the different schools, and I like to just avoid this discussion here about what is the best school.
Well, I think it depends on the goal. Probably, I think here we should say that it depends on the goal, because, I mean, there are a lot of very smart people working in Ethereum, working in Cardano, and we have been, especially when we were working with Ethereum itself, we met probably all top guys who are working with, guys from academia, mathematics, cryptographers. But there is, for some reason, a lot of people from that community, they are very stuck with a seemingly noble goal to bring happiness and a better world to every single human. And this concept of, in economy, it's called the common good, it actually perverts a lot of stuff, because from political point of view, for example, it can be sometimes, not always, but sometimes can be compared to socialism. And though socialism and the concept of common good, they can seem very nice, very good to have, and very supportive for everyone, but the whole, and it's very similar to the concepts of equality and everything. But when you look at the outcomes that you receive, if you follow this strategy and this narrative and the mindset, you understand that you are not building the better world, you're building concentration camp. Because you have this equality, which from biology probably can be compared to crossbreeding, for example. It's like saying that lion and lamb are equal. They're not equal. From biological point of view, they cannot be equal. This is why when people say to me that, that they are standing for people being equal, and I see people as medical objects very often, and I explore them because it's fascinating sometimes to just see how different people are. And sometimes I can see two different humans and they are so different, then I cannot even say that they are equal. Mm-hmm. You cannot say that eagle and the lion are equal. They are not.
I think it's also that, given that these different protocols also offer different ways of making consensus, I think it also might just appeal to different people, right? So these are just different ways of making decisions, and there is just maybe not one ideal way. It's the way you should choose how you want to make decisions in your network, and then choose for the protocol that is the closest to your natural way of making decisions, or preferred way of making decisions. So eventually there is also a space for plurality, right? And not just one protocol, but also possibly many different solutions that appeal to different types of people. And that's
yes, here I agree with you completely. And what I'm actually grateful for, everything which is not Bitcoin, is for giving us the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. We learned as a project, as a company, as a group of people, we learned from our mistakes when we tried to follow different paths. But currently, after we still we left that community and we were sticking to Bitcoin right now, and we're building on Bitcoin right now, we still see how other people have good ideas, but some of them had bad implementations, and vice versa. Some people can have very bad ideas, but they have so brilliant team or some brilliant guy in the team, one single person, who does everything so nicely that if that effort would have been spent on a good idea, that would have been a miracle. So I'm still like thankful for for their effort and for everything that they're showing us, especially how not to do stuff.
Well, it's also, I think it's generally true about business development that idea itself is worth nothing. It's just about execution, and I think yeah, it's absolutely true what you're saying. Sure. Okay. So since this channel is all about career development and also self-navigating in the job market, I'd like to also ask you about how you navigate in this complex space, because I know that blockchain community, since it's a new field, it's a bit of a chaotic environment still. So, and I feel that it's really hard to combine a project because it's also a bit like a Babel tower. So there are different people coming with different motivations. Some of them have motivations different from what they claim. Some of them have very pure motivations and genuine. You know, they are ideologists and enthusiasts, and so it's a combination of lots of smart people with different motivations and different personal goals that come to the same space. And you talk when we talk about your career in blockchains, you phrase it per we. And so I would like to ask you more about your team. And so how did you build your team? What is your strategy? How you choose people to work with? And who do you work with at the moment? And what advice you could share also for people who are entering the space in terms of how to choose the right people to work with?
I got it. Good. I'll probably start with have 3 or 4 different blocks to cover. So answering the first part of your question, how to navigate through all the mess, especially if you want to switch the spheres from one to another. First and foremost, probably my advice would be to not to look at people as professionals or people or guys that have some hierarchical level. I would probably advise people that are trying to do it, to switch to another sphere, to look at people, as humans. And especially if you're a medical doctor, you know the amount of, for example, cognitive biases that people have. Even if you're talking to a CEO or a billionaire, you should always keep in mind that they are still people and they still have a lot of biases. They might have the thing that you are talking about, good ideas when they say it, but very nasty ideas at heart. And it's not something, I had this bias that I was always thinking that probably if I go first to medicine, then I thought that when I switched from medicine, when I understood that medical system is a system and you either need to work for the system or you're out, because you cannot be like an artist there. You cannot treat a person the way you see that it would be better for the person. You need to follow the treatment protocol and go away, that's it. I thought that IT sphere itself and later blockchain sphere and crypto sphere would give me more freedom to do what I want to do and how I want to do. This is the case, but still to some extent. because first and foremost, all the systems, all the communities, they are built from humans, and humans are not perfect. And this is why first, don't be afraid to talk to other people and to ask them questions and to start thinking against the common narrative. Because if you do that, then a lot of other things would be easier when you try to learn new things. That's the first thing. The second thing, when I refer to we, basically currently, I worked before that. I worked in a corporate company also, like in a very standard software development with hierarchies, with processes and all of that, and I established those processes. There, at some point, systems that you build, that are built in medicine, systems that are built in IT sphere, in corporate ones. And for example, very often systems that you can see built in the community, I mean like Cardano, including, and all other blockchains and all of that. And even in Bitcoin currently, especially with all the flow with huge industrial players recently, you can see the same corporate patterns and the same system patterns. So if you think, if someone is afraid that they would not fit into it, they can be pretty calm with that, because they can eventually see a lot of very, very common human-based cooperation points and cooperation models. The same way that they saw in medicine, or when they did their PhDs, if they worked in corporate companies or pharma, for example, and if they want to go to crypto or blockchain, Bitcoin fields. So it's not something that people should be scared of while switching there. And lastly, probably talking about who we are. Currently, it's on one hand simple, on the other hand hard to say that. So currently in our company, we have 3 core people and 3 active founders that are driving everything. First is Maxim Orlovsky. He's actually a medical doctor and neuroscientist also, and he has a PhD. So probably he is also a very good point here to this discussion. And but he has always been very ambitious and very like passionate about things, especially about topics like immortality and transhumanism. And he also was fascinated with how genes work and how programming works, because if you actually dig into it, there are a lot of similarities between how genome works and how computer programs work and how computer code works. So he basically spent like 30 years or something on programming and exploring neuroscience, having experiments and all of that. And currently he is the lead engineer behind the RGB effort. So a lot of like the craziest implementations and a lot of crazy ideas that we're working with currently, they come from him and they are being implemented by him. So this is one of the guys. Another co-founder of ours is Sabina. She's from Greece originally, and she is actually a game theory PhD, which is another person. So basically, I think that every single person from our team, from our founders, is the person that you can probably invite here. She's an economist, but she's the economist which does not fly too much in theoretical parts of economy, and she's very fascinated in game theory. And this is why a a lot of ideas of the protocols, of building protocols when we need to establish some cooperational points and systems were coming from her, and we were talking with her for that, about that. So these are like 3 core team members, and we also have many different other founders, but they're not that active. Currently, they advise us in case we have some questions or issues, but they're not that much involved currently. And we're actually right now at this moment in time, we're building a lot of things from scratch, I can say so. And we work with many huge names and huge guys from cryptosphere, from Bitcoin sphere, such as Bitfinex and Tether and Fulgur. And the main, throughout the past probably 2 years, we also found out how community-driven development and open source development can be valuable. And this is why we do not have that many people. We're hiring right now, but we do not want to scale the team too much and to, you know, to have this vision that a lot of activities are going on, but in fact, nothing is, because a lot of companies, they're actually doing that. We understood how valuable community effort can be, and how one passionate contributor can benefit from what we are doing and can bring benefits for us without any like political tension or arguments about salaries or whatever it is. Everyone that worked in the corporate environment, they know that every time you hire someone, you have a lot of like HR problems to cover. Mm-hmm. So currently we're leveraging the community effort, and also the community is very interested in contributing itself to what we're doing. So we're just finding cooperation points with whoever is interested. And if someone is interested in actually working for us and with us as a company, we're talking to them about this. And if someone just wants to be a free artist and free contributor, they are willing to do that, because we're actually also following the same narrative with other projects and other companies. If they're open source and if they invite guys to make peer reviews or to write code and contribute, or even to read the docs, we're there, and if we're interested, we contribute. So this is a very fascinating field. Like the whole open source field is very fascinating, and it's still very different from the classical corporate IT one. And from management perspective, it's actually easier to manage.
Right. Well, I totally get it. Like in my company also, I only work with subcontractors, and I do a lot of barter in exchange of intellectual property as well. So also working with enthusiasts who contribute something and I can help them. So it's also, I totally get this this strategy. And good that you mentioned that there is an open community, because actually a few months back I launched another episode here on this channel that was also dedicated to blockchains and Bitcoin community, and I got some questions from PhDs who would like to contribute in this space, but they don't know where to start, because indeed for a person from the outside it's really hard to recognize where are the quality projects, because there are now, especially now in the bull run, there are so many different communities online. And when you're from the outside, when you're fresh, it's sometimes very hard to recognize where you can actually do the actual difference. So I think it would be good if I put a link to your community here under this episode, so that if you guys are interested and if you would like to try and get familiar with the RGB project and Olga's company and community, then please check it out. And
yes, you can post even I can give you my Telegram handle, for example. If someone wants to switch from PhD or has a PhD but wants to try his effort or her effort in Bitcoin, or wants to play around with it, or is a medical doctor who wants to switch, people can just drop me a message, and I can advise something or put some links and help them navigate. That would not be a very huge job for me. So, but please do not write me hello and nothing, because I usually think that that's a bot and I just delete the message straight away. So introduce yourself and ask the question.
Well, it's either a bot or some gentleman.
They are still bots.
Oh, still bots? Okay, well.
Yes.
Well, like at some point, I think there will be plenty of people trying to get your attention. So sooner or later, so be aware of that. And okay, just relating to this, what would you say to people who would like to join your project, but they are not cryptographers and they cannot program on the level that is anywhere close to Dr. Orlovsky's level or your level, but they would nevertheless like to contribute? Can they be of any help to you?
Well, I'm not a coder. I do not code that much. I can read code, but I'm not a programmer also. And we actually, like, beyond code, we have a lot of activities that we need to work with. For example, we still have a lot of, so probably the challenge, one of the challenges that we're facing now, that I am facing now, is to translate everything that Maxime does into human readable language. Thus, it usually means creating, we have the FAQ website, for example, and we need to put a lot of information there and put it not in like machine generated way, but to actually create a little story. And well, I call it a story because simply it should be logical from the end to from the beginning to end. And if people can have some will or desire to work with text, even with audio recordings, with video recordings that we have, they are free to reach out. If someone can, or I don't know, probably is passionate with, say, design or illustration or something like that, we can work on creating infographics. And working with the community on those infographics. And we have a lot of like community channels also where we would totally appreciate help in managing, in creating content that we need. So don't be afraid. If you are not a coder, but you want to get involved, just send me a message, and believe me, we have a lot of job to do together. So.
Well, actually, a friend of mine, Perry, is just trying to do that. So he's
yes.
You are watching Maxime's lectures and trying to make sense out of it and put it in text. So that's fun.
Yes, he actually created recently. Perry created a very good document which describes how one of our products, Bitcoin Pro, is working. And that was a very surprising outcome, very surprising contribution, but a very, very good one. And I'm still thinking on how it would be better to post it, like where, in what shape, whether it should be an article or something, or just a file in a repository or something. But those types, like these types of contributions, are also highly appreciated and very, very welcomed. Thank you, Perry.
Yeah, that is great. All right. Actually, one more question I'm very tempted to ask you is, how did you find Maxime? Because like, you don't have to, he's clearly a genius. You don't have to be very bright to see that, from his lectures. Like, it's quite clear. And I always wonder where do you find those people? Because like in my experience, the smartest people who are really passionate and who have all this skill to actually put ideas to practice, they're just away from the crowd. They're just sitting out there somewhere in their cubicle doing their projects, and it's so hard to find them. So how did you encounter Maxim, and how did you meet him originally?
Originally, he was the person who gave me the application when I was looking for a job when I was looking for my first job.
Oh wow!
So we've known each other for like 10 years probably or something.
Okay. Oh wow!
Yeah.
So it was a really lucky strike to actually find the right person so early. Nice.
Well, a lot of people think that this is lucky, like this is something about luck. I think that yes, there is a huge part of being lucky when you talk about things like this, but also if you think about it, like me personally, I needed to make a lot of right decisions in order to become that lucky. First and foremost, I needed to dare to come from a very small city when I was born to the capital of the country to study. I needed to pass all of the exams, which I was not even prepared for in the first place, and like make like a hard way to educate myself in order to be led into one room with other people. Because if you're out of the room, if you want to meet a cryptographer, but you do not understand where they live, how they breathe, if you do not understand cryptography, if you are not fascinated, at least at some level, you don't need to be brilliant at it, but at least be interested and passionate enough about it, then you at some point, if you're burning with some ideas or some or some activity, you'd start spotting people that are like you, and then some of them are false, but there is still a good bunch of people that stay, and they become your friends, and they become people that you work with. But it always starts with you yourself creating the way of yourself to be lucky. It's not always it's like happy coincidence or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
like
true.
The best improvisation is the one that you prepare for.
Right. Well, it's also even if sometimes you get lucky, you still have to recognize that you got a good shot at something and then stick to it. So it's still
Correct.
yeah, indeed. Great. Okay, so lastly, I'd like to ask you a question from the audience, which is no surprise here from Perry. This question for you is, as Peter Field once said, the most successful businesses have an idea for the future that is very different from the present. And in your eyes, how will the world look when the RGB project is up and running, and when the Bitcoin ecosystem develops to its full potential? What will be possible in this world of the future?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. Probably I can say that for a lot of people, nothing will be changed. That's the first thing, because if you think about it, a lot of countries, a lot of people, a lot of families, for example, they are not using a lot of technologies that are available right now. They're not using products that are available right now. And a lot of people, they even do not need freedom that Bitcoin can give. They actually need to stick together. They actually need to have a boss that would tell them what to do. This is why the value proposition of Bitcoin and RGB for them is zero, because they just don't need that. They don't need their phones. They don't need secure communication. They just need a couple of beers and happy family around. That's it. So for many people like that, probably nothing will change. But for people like us, for example, those that work hard on overcoming any kind of restriction, whether biological, physical, regulations, or anything. For us, a lot of new possibilities and new ways to fulfill our goals would be enabled, and we would have more tools to actually protect ourselves and gain even more freedom with time. And I think as a side effect, the world, I mean, currently, especially now during this hysteria times, it's hard to predict what would happen actually, like what would happen in fact. But I'm very convinced that if you want to become free, and if that's your goal, if you actually want to become sovereign and fulfill your potential to the fullest, RGB and Bitcoin and the technologies that we're building will help you to do that in your own way. If you want to build tools, join the effort with us if you want to join it, or building something new from scratch, but be inspired by something that we did or introduced. It can take various forms, but it will always be dependent on the observer, on the person who sees the technology, accepts the ideas, and whether they resonate with him or not. So those kinds of people would have more tools and more possibilities, definitely.
Great. Okay, we have to slowly come to the end of this interview. So, do you still have some more general career advice for anyone who is now still undecided what to do next, who is still in academia and thinking, just trying to, looking into the outside world and unsure if they should try themselves, for instance, in the blockchain community? Do you have anything to share to encourage them to try?
Probably yes, but I think I said about it in one way or another, but maybe to sum it up a bit. Probably the career contemplations that people have right now are a bit different from the ones that they used to have when they were 16, for example. Because currently, on top of being unsure on where to go, you do not have all the time in the world to try everything and then decide. Because probably the audience that is listening to this now is not in their 20s anymore. So I would probably still say that no one should be afraid to switch. It's always hard to switch. It's never easy to switch, but it's usually, I mean, from my perspective, if you really want to dig into something else, something different from what you have been working on before, that's the way to go. If this drives you, you should go for it and not be afraid of whatever, like what family can think, what your spouse can think, what the kids or neighbors or the government will think. Just go for it and see how it goes. But there is still question of where to go. And probably this is one of the questions, especially now taking into account the crisis. A lot of people don't have their jobs, and the question of where to go is very important to address. And unfortunately, there's not a single person that can tell you definitely where to go, because where to go is the question that should be answered by the person. Where you need to be, that's actually the real question. And if someone wants to switch from being a medical doctor to being an artist, they must go for it. Maybe eventually on the road they would understand they want to be an architecture, but not an artist, or some details of the path and of the end goal would be different, but it always starts with a person spending a lot of time and effort onto understanding what he or she is, what they want, and where they need to go. Because like no career advisors, actually, no coaches, no books about business, no books about career path would in fact help you make that decision, because the decision and the idea and the passion should be within the person, not from the outside. So just put yourself together, think for a day, two, maybe 2 months, but try some things, but don't spend too much time on it. If you understand that it's not yours, just feel free to drop it and go into something else. Don't be afraid and just go for it.
Yeah, I think it's also good to remember that you only live once and time passes by. So sometimes just trying things, it's better than just sitting with your arms crossed and waiting and yeah, thinking too much. And yeah, and you can make mistakes, but you will regret things you didn't do more than the things you did, and for sure.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Olga, for visiting us today, for this wonderful, wonderful story and all the details and all the great insights that you shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
And to all of you guys who came to the end of this episode, thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to get more of this type of content, then please subscribe to this channel. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, please put them here below the episode and in the comment section, and we'll take your questions. So we are open to hearing your comments and questions. And thank you so much again, Olga, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much for coming.